Okay, so we ranked the West Metro, and let me tell you, the comments on that were actually pretty good. Y'all really had some strong opinions about Plymouth, let me tell you, especially on TikTok. My goodness. So today, we are then now going to be doing the North Suburbs. Now, I am a child of the Northwest Burbs, and I will talk about that a little bit in my video, but the Northern Suburbs often don't get as much attention, I feel like, as certainly the Western and Southern Suburbs. So I'm curious, are there any on here that I missed? Have I totally missed any of my takes that I have on these? Please comment your perspective down below. I'm always curious to get to know fellow Minnesotans' take. Now, as you know, in this series, this is no fluff, there's no agenda, and I'm giving you an actual opinion about all of these suburbs. And as you know, typical tiers, S, A, B, C, and then we'll see what else we get into at the tail end of the video. Especially some of these last ones. You're gonna be surprised. All right, let's check it out. All right, first suburb up, let's talk about Roseville, and I am putting it in the A tier, and here's why. There are some really nice one-level ramblers in Roseville. And if you're a buyer that wants the single-level living and you're maybe thinking about living there long-term for accessibility, or you want a good quality house that will last a long time and hold its value, the houses in Roseville are great. The lots are smaller, and so you're gonna have an easier house to manage if you're a first-time buyer. There's the Rosedale Mall, which is great. AMC has both an IMAX and a Dolby, even though it's technically a IMAX, but that's a whole other story. It often flies under the radar when it's compared to its other siblings in the northern suburbs. But it's definitely better than the next one, which is Coon Rapids. Now, Coon Rapids is a C tier, and I say that with love. My aunt, who was one of my favorite humans in the world, she would take me to Lilliput, and she happened to be in a wheelchair, and she would always watch me play mini golf, and that's one of the fondest memories that I have growing up. So a part of me will always have Coon Rapids as a soft spot in my heart. That being said, from a objective home buying standpoint, unless you're already there and Coon Rapids is part of your daily life, that's where you have friends or that's where you have family, there's really not going to be anything that's going to draw you to Coon Rapids other than it being affordable. That affordability comes with trade-offs. Not necessarily from a safety standpoint, I think relatively speaking, but please check the stats of each of these cities, as safe is relative and it can mean something completely different from one person to the next. But it's not gonna wow you when you're driving through it. It's very blue collar, which to some is a pro and others is not something that they're looking for. Just know what you're getting when you go through Coon Rapids. C tier. See, I can leave emotion out of it too. Arden Hills. Now, Arden Hills for me is an S tier. If you are a relocation buyer, this is one that I will absolutely tell you about. You get space, real space. You get bigger lots, and it's relatively quiet. There's, I think, a breathing room that buyers are looking for, especially relocation buyers when they're moving from the coasts or places where they feel congested and they want to have larger lots or space. They're going to go to Arden Hills. It's not flashy, and honestly, I think for us Minnesotans, when we think of Arden Hills, most of us think of that spot where we all got our driver's license and passed our test, thankfully. But Arden Hills is still a great option, and you have easy access to Roseville and the Rosedale Mall as an example. Next up, Fridley. Now, Fridley is a C tier. Fridley, I think, flies under the radar. It keeps its head down, and it delivers a very functional, affordable option for buyers who need to make the numbers work. It is not a suburb that will win the beauty contest by any means. And it's not going to be an answer if you're a buyer relocating from a higher end coastal market. You're not going to end up in Fridley. But it does the job for the right buyer at the right price point. And I would rather be honest with you than rather try to dress it up in some sort of sales pitch. C tier. By the way, how am I doing? Am I missing any of these? I do also, as a fun fact, have my full relocation guide in my Stan store. It is completely free and you can download it in the link below. Champlin. Now, Champlin, I think, gets a B tier. Champlin is where I often hang out. My local watering hole, Clive's, is in Champlin, and Champlin is quieter. It's a little bit removed from the core of the metro, which for certain buyers is exactly what they're looking for. It's got a great recreation spot right along the Mississippi with trails and parks and whatnot. But there's two things that I think are like, if they didn't have this, it would be an A or S tier. One is 169. It is the main thoroughfare in Champlin. And if you are trying to get from Champlin across the bridge, across the Mississippi into Anoka, anytime after 3 and before 7, good luck. Pack a podcast, pack some food. Because of that congestion all trying to get across the bridge, it doesn't lead to the best experience. And then even if you're not trying to get across the bridge and you're just trying to get somewhere else in Champlin, you're gonna probably have to take the back roads because that main freeway is very congested. And then the second thing is political turmoil. And maybe this is just because of my awareness bias, because I'm on like the Champlin community page and whatnot, but my gosh, there is some political discourse with some people. Champlin is one of the cities that has decided to go back to the original flag as compared to our current flag. Now, this is not a comment about that. It is just making a note that it is happening in Champlin. And I think that issue is indicative of a lot of the political discourse that is happening in Champlin. And the mayor trying to then figure out a way forward, because you've got the mayor on one side, you've got the board on the other, and that discourse, it's felt by the residents for sure, regardless of which side of the issue or which side of the aisle that you're on. Shoreview. Now, Shoreview, I also give an S tier. Shoreview, it's quiet, it's established, and it's a small community, which most people are actually looking for when they're moving to the suburbs. They're not looking for these big, huge suburbs. They want a very intimate feeling neighborhood. For sure, the housing stock here is like not as polished as some of the other suburbs on this list, but the value and I think the livability here is what I really want to point out. For buyers that are prioritizing budget without the quality of life, I think Shoreview can be a fantastic option. One of my clients who was looking for 3 years with another agent, they moved to me and I had them under contract in a house in Shoreview in 2 weeks. That suburb is near and dear to my heart, for sure. So you know how I was referring to suburbs that go on forever? Yeah, well, that's this next one, Blaine. Blaine, I give a B tier. Okay, so actually, let me take that back. There's parts of Blaine that are absolute S tier. You have literally every single store you can imagine. The housing is both great value and affordable and still in great condition. But then you also have trailer parks. And this is no shame on trailer parks, but like that's a very different feel than like the multi-million-dollar houses that are in Blaine. And so you've got this wide range, and it's sort of like Blaine doesn't know what it wants to be. It's sort of like it had a manifest destiny where it expanded and conquered all, and then now it's like, well, now what do we do with this space? And it just sort of like a hodgepodge, fill it in with random stuff and whatever it is that they could find. I have some of my closest friends that live in Blaine, and I go visit all the time. I have an office in Blaine. I am not talking about it in terms of shade, but being real, it's like you can be in the same suburb and get a very different experience on where you go, which is why it is so important that regardless of what suburb you're looking at, you drive the streets, you drive the neighborhood, because it is one thing to look at it on photos or on a map, but if you don't actually see what the lived experience is, you're gonna be, up you-know-what creek without a paddle. Next up, New Brighton. Now, New Brighton for me gets an A tier. The way I describe New Brighton is like Minneapolis-lite. I mean, you are literally on the border of Northeast Minneapolis. You are getting smaller lots because of that proximity, but it's still relatively affordable. And if you want the convenience and the accessibility, the city adjacent energy while not paying city prices, New Brighton can be an excellent option for you. The foundation of the community is solid, 100%. And for the right buyer who wants that urban adjacent feel, they are going to absolutely love New Brighton. It is legitimately, it's a great spot. A tier for sure. Last but not least, I want to talk about Brooklyn Park. Brooklyn Park, similar to Blaine, has very different areas. And no, when I say this, I want to be clear, this is not a judgment, but there is two very different parts of Brooklyn Park. The only way I really recommend folks to understand and to get it is to actually drive the neighborhoods. Because on one hand, on the north hand side, you've got one experience versus on the south side, you've got another. And there's a significant gap that you would want to do your due diligence in going through and explaining. In that sense, it's like it's almost impossible to rank the city, because it's like, well, depending on where you are in the city, it could be either an S tier or it could be a C tier. The right question is, which part are you buying into? All right, so here's the bottom line on the North Metro. It's where I spend a good portion of my time. And while the West Metro is where I mainly eat, work, and play, if value is what is driving your search, so many of these places in the North Metro are exactly where you should be looking. If you are relocating to the Twin Cities and you want a personalized approach on what's going to be best for you in your situation, please book a call with me, email me, text me, whatever's going to be the best way of communication. Shoot me your information down below. That's it for me today, friends. I'm excited for this second episode in this series, and I will see you in the next one.